All right, good morning everyone, and thank you for watching Charlotte overhead, that the sound is okay. Thank you all for being here, and it's very, very gratifying to see that we have we're always tracking, and that's probably what today's about, and that we have a markedly larger turnout this year than we had last year, which I'm going to take as a good sign of engagement. So I'm going to start first, just say that when we hire here at Wooster, we really look for people who are kind, who want to work really hard, and they work well with others. We also look for people who are really smart and curious and passionate about thinking and learning. So we're really blessed to have a board chair who's all those things and more. His support and the support of all of our board members has been very, very important and vital to our success in the last several years. And support from the Parents Association and Jody Felton in particular has also been extremely important to us, and she also fits into that category of the kind of person who we want to hire if we could. So the Parents Association is hosting us today, which is a wonderful thing, and this happens under the auspices of the Board of Trustees, who again, I think you all should, when you have a chance, and we have a bunch of board members that are here today, just because they haven't heard me speak enough. So I want to thank all of them for being here, and maybe you guys can stand up and just wave to the crowd. No? Yes? Just real quickly. Bill Felton, Dan Weaver, Mr. Cunningham, Ms. Becker, Mr. Orr, and of course Mr. Wooster. So thank you all for being here. I'm going to turn it over to Jim, and he will say some words, and then I'll return and talk about where we are and where we hope to be going. Thank you.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. And if it was a job offer, no. Yeah. Thank you all for coming this morning. It's great to see such a nice turnout. And thank you especially for entrusting your children to Wooster School. This is my 10th year on the Wooster Board and my 8th as president of the board. I'm here because my two daughters have been Wooster students. The elder, Emma, entered Wooster in 6th grade and graduated from the upper school in 2007. And her younger sister, Iris, entered Wooster in the 1st grade and graduated from the upper school in 2012. They got to get on with their lives, and I'm still here. So our family has been associated with Wooster since the year 2000, and my long engagement with the school reflects that of the board generally. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the board, what the board does, and then talk about some of the important things we see happening in the school from our perspective. The board comprises 8 alums of Wooster, 3 of whom are also parents or past parents. There's 12 current or past parents in addition to those 3 parents who are alum, and 2 outside trustees, 1 independent school headmaster and a former college president and dean. The ones who are here have stood up. I suggest you talk to them afterwards. They have a wealth of knowledge about the school and are passionately invested in its mission. Collectively, the board carries over 200 years of Wooster experience as alum and parents, and that experience informs our sense of the past, present, and future of the school. Many of us work many hours every week, month in and month out, to respect that past in the only possible way that can be done, by supporting the present and working to ensure its future. The responsibility of the board is threefold. First, it's fiduciary, working to ensure the current financial stability and the future financial viability and health of the school. In that regard, our treasurer, Jim Hennigan, has done remarkable work in the past few years with Matt and Andrew Gray, and I salute him. And if any of you see him, you should thank him as well, because he stopped speaking to me after he realized that when I told him being a treasurer wasn't going to be that much work, was not true. On the financial score, we've made phenomenal progress in the past 2 years, Matt's first 2 years at the school. We're tracking close to a balanced operational budget after several years of frankly unsustainable deficits. So we've gotten the financial house in order, and we will keep it there. This is allowing us to refresh our look at our financing of the institution with our partner, the Savings Bank of Danbury, who was just on campus, some of their officers, and we're very impressed with what they're seeing. Quite remarkably, in my experience, having worked at several independent schools on the board, we are giving them financial projections and hitting the mark every time. So they're very impressed with the job that's being done, which is great, because both the operational budgetary improvements and the financing piece allow us to begin in earnest the work of building our endowment as we approach our centennial in 2026. Second piece of the board's responsibility is hiring the head of school. The head of school is ultimately responsible for planning, staffing, implementing, and assessing the programs that animate our mission day to day, week to week, month to month, and year to year. Matt is currently in the third year of what was originally a 3-year contract, which I'm pleased to say that we have extended for an additional 5 years to ensure continuity and growth through 2021. The third board responsibility is management of what I call the institutional life cycle, which is what I'd like to talk about this morning. For schools have life cycles, and the stewards of the institution must be cognizant of where the school is in that cycle at any point in time and where it's headed next. Periodically, an institution, as all of us, must find a way to rejuvenate itself with for the benefit of the new generations it will be called upon to serve. Otherwise, it can't provide the kind of experience that makes the institution worthwhile in the first place. So there's a constant tension between tradition and change, and it has to be actively managed. You don't want your children in an unchanging school. You might think of the school cycle as something like that of a house. It needs to be refurbished and refreshed, reimagined to accommodate new families. The foundation, however, remains the same. For the past 2 years, we have been in the midst of such refreshment at Wooster, with changes to program and personnel and improvements to physical plant, such as the Felton Learning Studio, the makerspace, the dining room, and the physics lab. It's a very exciting time, and the excitement permeates our classrooms. I had the pleasure of going to a Hamlet class recently, which was wonderful to see. Matt was playing Polonius, and the students were very engaged, and it's exciting to see from a board perspective to actually get in the classroom and say, oh, yeah, this is why we do this. So that was inspiring. But for all this change, what hasn't changed is our purpose. But what has changed in some areas is our practice, and I'd like to focus on the theme of purpose and practice for just a few moments. What's the purpose of a school? It's a question too often overlooked in the discussion of education, mostly because it's very hard to answer. When the Reverend Aaron Coburn founded the school 90 years ago, he said that its mission was to save boys' souls. Well, what does that mean for us today? Our idea of the student body has certainly been enlarged to include girls as well as boys, thankfully. And our idea of the school, of the soul, I will be bold enough to suggest it's probably a little broader too. Its locus is not any particular dogma or belief system, but rather the more expansive idea of faith that animates us as parents and as teachers. Schools are inherently hopeful places. All education is faith-based because our children make us faithful, not in how or what we believe, but in how we hope. We don't know how the young people on this campus or the young people around our dining room tables will end up ultimately, be they our own children or our students. But we apply our faith to the task of effecting a good end to the best of our ability. Schools are the places where we try to turn our best wishes into some reality we can never fully define before it's at hand. In a marvelous essay called Neurology and the Soul, published 25 years ago, the neurologist and author Oliver Sacks, who just recently passed away, wrote the following: "It is characteristic of a creature, in contrast to a computer, that nothing is ever precisely repeated or reproduced, that there is rather a continual revision and reorganization of perception and memory, so that no two experiences or their neural bases are ever precisely the same. Experience is ever changing, like Heraclitus' stream. The stream-like quality of mind and perception, of consciousness and life, cannot be caught in any mechanical model. It is only possible in an evolving creature." That's the end of the quote. And when we talk about the institutional life cycle, we're saying that a school is an emergent creature too. A mechanical model won't work, only one that is constantly evolving. Add to that the fact that every classroom is filled with a dozen or more creatures, your children, no two of whom are the same, each of whom is evolving every day at her or his own pace. Our teachers must nurture and channel and direct all of these evolving streams of energy and talent and emotion with no certainty as to how it will turn out in any given case. Only their faith and attention and effort and imagination will help. We're in the habit of thinking about schools as an ivory tower, but I think that's short-sighted because the classroom is filled with kids thinking, working, fooling around. That's reality itself, a network of storylines that can't be imagined to completion, which makes teaching a daunting job, as daunting as it is important. So how do we equip our teachers for it? And here is where the practice meets our purpose. And it is the most encouraging of the many encouraging things I see when I consider the state of Wooster School today. Through a concerted and collaborative and energetic program of professional development, we're equipping our teachers as never before to do their daunting work, and they are taking up the challenge with great energy and verve. Our work with teachers falls into two categories. Teacher learning groups, in which they collaborate on current practices and thinking, and curriculum development, in which they are learning about and implementing broader concepts and practices. In the lower, middle, and upper school, and in the prospect program across divisions, our teachers are engaged in individual work and reflection, collaborative cross-discipline engagement, and external workshops and courses that are enhancing their skills and amplifying the reach of their talent. And all of this is coming together to serve our students in new ways, as in this past Tuesday's Day of Reflection, which I think Matt will speak about in a minute. The salient point is that as an institution, we are investing time and money in professional development because it's a primary goal to make sure our teachers are given the tools they need for their own evolution and their own becoming, which of course is what we ask of our students. Because core to our mission is to be a place where a kid can come to become him or herself, whoever that may be, and even if, especially if they don't know who it is yet. About 200 years ago, the poet John Keats, in a letter, exhorted, I think it was his brother he was writing to think of the world not as a vale of tears, but as a vale of soul-making. Soul, he said, as distinguished from an intelligence. There may be intelligence or sparks of the divinity in millions, but they are not souls till they acquire identities, till each one is personally itself. Close quote. That's exactly why we educate, and what an education at Wooster should mean. We are not helping students build a resume, but rather a residence, a place where their dreams as well as their deeds can dwell. We invest in our teachers because they will help our students construct those residences, the ones in which their inner lives will live, in which they will live with their own loves and families through the decades ahead of them. School is a maker space for what's abiding. If Aaron Coburn were a 21st century reverend, he might call a school a maker space for souls, each one personally itself. Last year, at this State of the School meeting, I said it was my conviction that Wooster had never had better leadership. I still feel that way. This year, because of its palpable dedication to their vocations through self-awareness and mutually supportive effort, I will say with equal conviction that in my estimation, Wooster has never had a better faculty. The board, frankly, could use some work. So I'm warning my colleagues that we have to up our game because a rising tide lifts all boats, even if you don't want to move. But all of us, administrators, teachers, trustees, know that we're lucky to have families like yours to allow us to do our work. And I hope there are some days, at least, when you reflect on how lucky you and your children are to be here. I appreciate very much the opportunity to speak with you. I'll be around after the presentation if you'd like to chat, and I will turn the podium over to Mr. Byrnes.
Thank you, Jim. So as Jim referenced, it was actually Wednesday that we did the day of reflection. So at about 9:15, I held open the doors, which the doors down there that you came in through, and about 200 8th through 11th grade students came streaming in, literally. I had to say, you know, you're going to be here all day, so slow down. And in here we had set up, you have to imagine the curtain being up, and there's round tables across the entire gym floor, 5 seats to a table, plus a seat for a faculty member. And within 4 minutes, every student was in a seat. They had all arranged themselves, and they were ready to go, and Chris Bonone had begun speaking. And as I watched it from the door, I couldn't help but think about today and how that was one small piece of evidence that would help me talk about the state of the school. Because I think most of us, if we think about it, and you think about taking 200 of your closest friends, or 200 colleagues from work, or 200 of the people you went to college with, and having them gather outside a door, and then opening the door, and without any real direction, expecting them all to just sit 5 to a table, and then within 4 minutes be ready to do something, I would say it would never happen. So, as we think about the state of where we are, we do have to kind of slow down, which was the point of what we were doing on Wednesday, and look at the whole big picture. And our kids were able to do that not because they're compliant or because, you know, they sort of self-selected into Wooster and therefore were compliant, because you all know at home, if your kids are like my kids, they're not nearly as compliant at home as they maybe are here. It's because of the work that we've been doing and the fact that they are used to being asked to learn together in certain ways. So they spent the next 4 hours reflecting on what it means to think, thinking about their own thinking, how that practice, which is a skill, it's a tangible skill, can help make them better learners and better people. They also reflected on the goals they had set for themselves earlier in the year, They wrote about that. They chose a piece of writing that they had worked on either earlier this year or even last year that they were particularly proud of, or that really reflected hard work and good thinking. And we asked them to think about it a little more. Now you're in a different context here. You've moved a little further along. What do you think of that piece now? We had them interact at their tables. They did a lot of independent work. We pulled the lens back at times and asked people at tables what was going on there, how were they answering questions. So there were opportunities for students to stand up in front of 200 of their peers, but spread across grade levels, and say what they were thinking and talk about what their group was talking about. We had them switch tables deliberately to get with some people who you don't know that well. And then we'll go through a similar exercise with people who we don't know as well. And then we'll think about how was that different, how was our thinking different while we were doing that. As I said, most tables included a teacher, and the teachers also did reflections at the beginning of the year, and they also have goals. So they were working on their own goals and their own reflections, but then they also were interacting with the students when it was time to do the group piece of things. So they're modeling for the kids, but they're also learning from the kids, and the kids are learning from them. Thinking, reading, writing, listening, collaborating, taking risks, all of those skills and dispositions were required, and they were all on display. They also ate more muffins and crumb cake and bagels than you could imagine. And we got them up frequently, they moved around, and based on observation and based on feedback, most of them had fun. And it was an enjoyable time, even if they struggled at times, even if at times they tuned out. It was fun, and it was meaningful. In the middle school common room, 6th and 7th graders were doing a similar version of the same thing. They were learning about learning, and they were looking at their progress reports, and they were reflecting on what am I seeing here, and what does it mean for me? Why do I think my teacher wrote this? What do I think about it? What can I do about it? Again, a very positive and I think rich experience for them. Our lower school students are not quite yet ready for that big event, but they're engaging in this every day. Any of you that have watched what happens in the lower school or had conversations with your lower school children know that they're being asked to do all these same things every day, and that they're learning how to work together, they're learning how to work independently, they're building skills, they're having fun, they're moving around, they're doing all those things. So they'll be ready when they get up into the middle school to engage in this kind of work. And that's by design. So this was an important day for us because it really was a marker of progress, and it spoke to our state as a school. Again, there was variability in learning, as there always will be, but the skills and dispositions, and that students are able to use those skills and engage in deeper thinking and higher level work was definitely evident. We brought them all together partly to see if it would work. We didn't know. We've never done this before, and I think Chris Pannone and Liz Higgins came up with the idea maybe 3 weeks ago. And part of the exercise and part of doing it was we have to be able to do this sort of thing and take these kind of risks ourselves if in fact we're going to see if it'll work. So it was a measure of both the efficacy of the programs that are going on every day, the teaching and the learning and the experience, and of our ability to pull this sort of thing together, structured in a way that it was meaningful for kids, but also so that we were gathering data for ourselves, because all of this was written down. So all of their reflecting, answering of questions, speculating, they wrote it all down, and it's all in their Google portfolios. So we have now data, and we have evidence, and then obviously we'll work with kids with that, but it also helps us to imagine what can we do next, and to notice what maybe isn't working, and also to zero in on who are the students whose questions perhaps were less than deep, or their answers, who didn't seem to engage as fully as we would like to, and how do we then start to address them through the day-to-day. And it was not unintentional that one of our prompts was to imagine describing yourself and what kind of thinker you are to a college admissions officer. And we asked students to put themselves in that position and think about what your answer would be. Can you do that? Would you be able to do that right now? If you can, what do you need to do to get to a place where you know yourself well enough that when you're sitting with someone else, you're able to nail that question? That's not a problem. And ideally, we want our students to present that to college admissions officers. When they're having a conversation with them, we want the conversation to end up being, what kind of thinker are they? Because I guarantee you there's not a lot of those interviews going on where the students are as prepared as our students are currently and are going to be to engage in a conversation about how I think and how I think my thinking makes me a better learner and what I've learned about myself and what I still need to do. It showed us Wednesday that we're making progress in that regard. So when we think about all of these things, our primary goal is always think about what's best for students and what do we want them to be able to do? What can they do right now? Why are certain things important to us? What progress have we made? What evidence do we have? Do they have goals? Do they understand their own goals? Do they understand the goals that we have for them? Where are we trying to get to together? You know, as Jim pointed out, you know, how do processes meet practices and purpose to come together in the best interest of students? And how are we benchmarking? How are we collecting data? To go deeper with these questions, and with our students, we continue to work on better understanding how people learn and why. At Wooster, you know, as Jim pointed out, and as an example of our teacher learning, understanding how people learn and why means new learning for us all the time. All the time. New information, new understandings, new evidence, new research is constantly emerging about how the brain works, how people learn, and it's going to continue to emerge for a long time. And so, as we deepen our understanding, we have to change our practices to optimize learning for students. We also change our perspective and our emphasis. How you learn and your understanding of that is now as important as what you learn. Probably more important. But those two concepts are tightly connected. So today's not the day necessarily to go really deeply into that, but I do want to stress that as we think about the state of Wooster School, we have to think about what we believe. And therefore, you know, what we do believe is that learning is biological, and it's social, and it's emotional. People's minds and their capacity for intellectual growth are valuable. But again, it's biological, and it's social, and it's emotional. And the growth will only occur if we are attending to all three of those aspects of how people's brains work and how they learn. And learning is a life function. It's literally how we survive. And it's how we thrive and become whole people. So, as I stand here today, I can say with confidence that we're making great progress in developing a school that's based on these beliefs. And our brains are at the center of it all. The brain controls the body and the mind. Its functioning is inextricably tied to our emotions, to our relationships, our culture, and our social environment. And I use the word inextricable, though it's difficult to pronounce, deliberately. A school can't decide to ignore or give short shrift to brain science or emotion or the social aspect of learning because the idea that you should pay attention to it is new because it maybe goes against your previously held beliefs about what should be happening in a classroom, because it's inconvenient to have to recognize how much we don't know and how much we need to learn, or if it's hard to understand. The evidence is too strong and it continues to grow. So a school has to engage in all those things and has to learn and has to grow. We can't fool ourselves into thinking that creating stress, compartmentalizing emotion, focusing solely on achievement, limiting social interaction in the classroom, all in the service of a rigorous intellectual environment is going to get anywhere close to developing as many whole, healthy, intellectually strong, and good people as it can. We can learn from working hard, and we should, but simply working hard is never going to be a proxy for learning. And the science is clear. Learning is social, learning is emotional, and because these two elements play such an important role, learning also has to be humane, it has to be interesting, it has to be varied, it has to be fun. It won't really happen if those things are not present and a part of the environment. It also has to be nurtured in the context of our lives and students' broader lives and habits, our health, our diet, sleep. All of these things have to be part of what we do because the effective development of intellect and of good people in general is a direct function of these things. Here at Wooster, we're uniquely qualified to do this work because we have a history of valuing the social and communal elements of learning. We've always been a community of care, and we're now emerging as a leader in putting the science of learning into practice within the context of that community of care. So as we engage in this challenging work, we're getting stronger because we continue to focus on people, programs, community, and the strong relationships that have always been a part of the Wooster tradition. We know that the people around whom this whole endeavor circles are teachers. Our teachers continue to meet together every week to collaborate and think more deeply about their own teaching practices. During this time, they're sharing lessons, they're debriefing visits they've made to each other's classrooms, they're developing their own skills and dispositions for collaboration, deep thinking, listening, risk-taking, and learning together. This summer, we all read a book, I think most of us, there was no test, called Make It Stick. And that took us deeper into the science of the brain and learning. Many of our teachers spent a good deal of time this summer stretching their own learning even further, as Jim mentioned. They attended advanced placement workshops. They worked with Liz Higgins here, 5th through 8th grade, on writing. Others worked on creating a more intentional and meaningful advisory program. A group of artists and makers attended the Constructing Modern Knowledge Conference in Vermont. One teacher designed a new digital literacy course for the middle school. Another, a new conceptual physics course for the 9th grade. Our humanities teachers attended a homegrown humanities institute led by Bill Rexford. Since school began, our lower school teachers have continued to work with our partners at Lit Life and on enriching their understanding of Singapore math. They've been designing new enrichment academy classes. Other teachers have attended workshops on tutorial learning and are beginning to integrate this into their classes. We continue to work with Mark Church of Making Thinking Visible, who was here just last month, working with new teachers and with those that have become leaders as facilitators for our teacher learning groups. Everyone has made progress on incorporating the Google platform into their plans for student learning. All of us continue to have the persistent disquiet with the status quo that's helping us to progress and reset what schooling means here at Wooster. Within our classrooms, teachers continue to implement the thinking and practices that they're exploring and learning about with their colleagues. In order to create the time and structure necessary to do deeper thinking and reflection as a norm at the classroom level, we're going to be spending some more time soon talking about time itself and how we manipulate and structure time to create more space and more time for the sorts of deep learning and reflection we know need to be happening. As we get better at measuring learning progress and communicating it between teacher and students, and between teachers, students, and parents, like we're beginning to do with our meetings with teachers and students and parents, we're going to continue to reevaluate assessment and our reporting systems as well. I do want to thank the Board of Trustees in particular for being such strong proponents of a culture that values teachers and their learning so highly, and for supporting innovation, that leads to better learning in all of its domains. Again, their support of what we're doing, and as Jim noted, the recognition of their own role relative to the school and how they can support us has been nothing short of amazing, and is the reason that I'm still standing here and I'm not like lying in a wrecked ball somewhere, weeping silently to myself. So while helping our teachers to deepen their understanding and maximize their talents, we're always also looking at putting teachers into environments that will produce the best learning, and continuing to make the curriculum of core skills, dispositions, and knowledge that are essential for student growth more intentional and more continuous across grade levels. A good part of teacher work at the start of the school year was in developing and continuing to work on course outlines and syllabi to help us better map the trajectory of those core teaching skills and dispositions and knowledge across grade levels. The core skills, reading, writing, speaking, computation, problem solving, are key to all of our students' future success. And better thinking and learning are not possible if those things are also not improving. We've also been working to provide more opportunities for students at all levels to apply these skills in authentic settings. We've expanded our Farm at Homes program. We've established a working partnership with the Aldrich Museum in Richfield, and we are looking for deeper, more intentional engagement through the establishment of the Center for Social Impact and Innovation this year. Reverend Lingle is working hard, refining our community service program under the auspices of the center. We've established our student-led impact fund. The center is also serving as a vehicle for establishing school partnerships, which will provide meaningful service opportunities for our students for years to come. Our relationship with the Rashmi School in Nepal is growing and expanding. We're beginning to plan for a service trip in July. We're currently working on a partnership with an elementary school in Danbury, possibly another school in Indonesia. Finally, the center is establishing a speaker series, which will lead off with a keynote from Ethan Zuckerman, Wooster grad and MIT professor, who is an internationally known thought leader when it comes to social media and social impact. There'll be more coming out on that later. Our Maker and Technology programs continue to evolve and thrive. Our 9th graders recently completed a second Go Baby Go vehicle redesign program for children, local children with disabilities. Our Lego robotics team for middle school is up and running. Students' use of technology for learning has expanded exponentially in the last 2 years, and that trend will continue as we move forward with our one-to-one device expectation for all 6th to 12th graders next year. Other programs like Prospect, Bridge, and our International Students Initiative are all thriving, and they're helping us to be a better, more diverse community of thinkers and learners. I could go on. Art, music, athletic, clubs, all are opportunities for our students to apply their skills, participate, make a difference, build confidence, and contribute to the community. And we have more opportunities in that regard than I think we've ever had. We're also building spirit and pride in the community through these programs. After we completed our reflective work on Wednesday, we had all of our 4th through 12th grade students here in the gym for what we call Midday Madness. And they got to cheer on the basketball team, they got to make a lot of noise, they got to watch fun games like watch the head of school throw up an air ball, miss his layup, and get knocked out by a hockey player. I had to tap into my own reserve of emotional intelligence and resilience on that one, but so I've recovered now by Friday. This whole event was sponsored by a new parent-led Wooster Athletic Spirit Club, another innovation this year in the area of parent engagement. And in that area, I would say that I don't think, and I don't know because I wasn't here, but our relationship with the Parent Association and our partnership and the way that we're being able to better engage parents, I think is also a great marker for us when we think about the state of the school. We also continue to take risks and develop confidence, thinking, and creativity through art. And today, I would urge all of you, when we're done here, take a walk up the hill, which will also be good for your physical and mental health, and go to the middle school common room where much of our middle school art will be on display. Go to the library where much of our upper school art will be on display. Or just walk around in the middle school or in the lower school where there's always lots of art on display. If you have a chance, please do that, because again, the kids are really proud of what they've done, and I think you'll be fairly amazed by what our art teachers get out of these kids. Finally, on the program end of things, I think most of you know about the amazing college admissions speaker series that Tyrone Black organized for us this fall, partly in conjunction with the Richfield Library. 8 evenings of very useful, current information, really from some of the best minds in college admissions from throughout the country. I, as a parent of a junior, got to maybe 6 of them, and my perspective on the college admissions process was changed fairly significantly by having gone and listened to what all of these people from all these different places had to say. Our overall process for students in regard to college guidance and admissions is a direct reflection of the deep thinking and thoughtful disposition with which we want students to approach all important decisions. A number of our students have already been admitted to their schools of choice through early decision. More will be hearing soon. Most importantly, I think we can say with confidence that all of our seniors have found places which they feel are a great fit for them. And they're learning for the next 4 years. And they've found multiple schools like that. And that's what that process should be about. If this all sounds a little exhausting, it can be. Talking about it, I think, is harder than actually doing it. We do get tired, but we all really love what we're doing here, which obviously creates good tiredness. We're also doing a much better job of monitoring our own health and our habits as adults as we work together, which obviously is a really important thing for all of us. So all of these things are able to happen, again, because we operate within the context of this community and within this history and within the traditions, many of which accelerate and enrich the relationships that are developed by design among all of us here, particularly between student and teacher. We know that in order to thrive, students and adults need to feel safe and included. We continue to rely on the concept of self-help as both motivator and support. And as I mentioned earlier, we also know how important emotions are in learning, and we're having a growing understanding of that. And obviously they're extremely important in living. So expect to hear more in the future from us about emotional intelligence and learning, and how we're going to start being more intentional with how we engage students on that front, just like we have become more intentional about a lot of other things. So, as we reset the school from the inside out, starting with students and teachers and working out from there, as Jim mentioned, you can't ignore the reality that while creating value for current and future families, we need to be doing it in a way that is smart and sustainable. Tuition is our greatest source of revenue, so growth management is really paramount in terms of our fiscal health. But growth management is contingent upon a number of factors, not just the number of students enrolled. We've stayed on our plan of expanding at the upper school level. and steadying the number of sections at the middle and lower schools. We lost my place here. We are currently, we have 180 students in the upper school, which is an increase of 21 from last year. And we started the year at 373. We started at 371, we're currently at 373 total students, which is up 2 from last year. Again, this has enabled us to normalize the middle school at 2 sections, where we currently have 93 students enrolled. And our lower school is up 3 students from last year. It's currently at 100. And again, that's in a single section model with 2 sections still at 5th grade, which is by design and something that we hope to continue to be able to do. Equally as important, our financial health, our average net tuition, which is the average amount paid in tuition when we net out financial assistance, is up 8% this year, and it's up 21% over the last 2 years. Stronger net tuition revenue, better management of financial aid dollars, restructuring, other efficiencies have resulted in our net expenses actually going down 2% over the last 3 years, while our total revenue has gone up 14%. I'd add that we have not lost sight of Wooster's mission of helping as many families as possible to benefit from being a part of our community. We still offer financial aid at a rate of about 27% total tuition, which is far greater than nearly all of the other independent schools in the region. We're far stronger financially, as Jim mentioned, than we were 3 years ago. But as Jim Hennigan would remind us all, and remind me constantly, our work in this regard is far from done. And he is absolutely right. And I want to echo Jim's congratulations or appreciation for Jim Hennigan, and also for Andrew Gregg, who's our CFO, because the two of them really are tireless in keeping us on track. So thanks to our Parents Association and your wonderful generosity and the generosity of alumni and trustees, we've been able to improve key spaces this year. Jim mentioned a few of these. We raised over $220,000 last year through our trustees and through the paddle raise at the Parents Association Gala to take on some very meaningful projects. We have a newly refurbished dining room, a state-of-the-art physics classroom, which we call the Sci-Box. We've got new furniture in our middle school common room, new signage at key points around campus, and we are also shaping up to have what is probably going to be the best playground in America. It's like a Woosterized Disney type theme at this point. That again is it's a intentional thing that we did, and the engagement that we've had from parents in that regard has been wonderful. There's been a lot of hard work. There was a lot of innovation required as we went through the process of building. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm happy to report that we have reached a different stage of development and are now going to engage Todd Fisher, who's been involved from the start, and with Tom Curley has really been the primary force. But Todd and his professional crew are going to take over and get this thing to the finish line. So stay tuned for that. But again, it started with money that we were able to raise from our community. Early in the new year, you'll see new doors on Grover and on the Honor Room, which is a part of the fundraising from last year. And I think it would be great to give a quick hand to the PA right now, because they helped make it all happen. It's this year's gala will be on campus, and I'm sure that it's going to be the best party that we've had in years. Jody guarantees that, and I would encourage you all to think about attending, because it's a really fun event, and I think this year is going to be particularly special as we do it here on campus. I want to thank our students too for doing a great job. They're continuing to help maintain the campus through the jobs program, and our maintenance staff. have truly risen to the occasion. I can't count the number of times that visitors to campus and folks who maybe used to be here a lot and haven't been here much and are back talk about the condition of the campus and how it looks. That's due to our great maintenance staff. So stay tuned for plans for similar upgrades next summer. I am happy to announce that we're already off and running, and thanks to a very generous donation from the Elfont family, our reception center is at the top of the list of things that we're going to be working on this summer. On a final money-related note, we're halfway through our 90-day annual appeal, and we're just about halfway there in terms of what we've been able to raise. Our ultimate goal is $600,000. We've put out plenty of information this year about the importance of the annual appeal and how it's integral to our operating budget. So I won't bore you with any more of that, but I would say that if you haven't contributed, I urge you to consider it. So though it's very early in the process of admissions, we are seeing some encouraging signs in the early numbers. Thanks to David Newman, Tyrone Black, and Paige Fisher, we've revamped a number of our processes and are being far more efficient with our limited resources. I want to thank Lori Kriegel too for really helping us to revamp our marketing and communication efforts as well. Our response time to prospective families is far better, and the process that we guide them through is more engaging and more informative. We're better communicating our value, and we're seeing results, as I said, in the early numbers. 3 years ago, we had 18 families at open house. Last year, we had 36. This year, we had 60. Last year, we drew 8 families to a follow-up, families that couldn't make the open house. It's a follow-up information center, kind of a mini open house that we do. This year, we had 25 who came for the follow-up. 3 years ago, we didn't even do a follow-up. The biggest difference at open house this year was teachers, students, and parents were out in force. You couldn't walk, and we did it here, we started here. You couldn't walk into the gym and not feel that something really cool was happening here. The energy, the enthusiasm with which our kids greeted prospective students and their families, the information they got from parents who were helping, the tours they got. Our student ambassador program is thriving. We have 43 students who are trained and contributing now, and it's helping us make great strides in how we engage with prospective families. Because we've gotten better at sharing who we are, we're seeing more inquiries. We have 237 so far this year, which is a 26% increase from this time last year. And because demand is rising, we're now asking that an application be completed before a student comes to campus to shadow. In the past, we didn't do that, and we're finding that by directing our resources better, it's having a better effect. So applications are also up to date, 19% from last year, and they're up 52% from 2 years ago, in 2013-14. So, in closing, I'd like to thank all of our parents for sending us their wonderful children, our teachers and staff for being amazing every day, and really inexhaustible in their commitment to the school. My incredibly talented leadership team, and all of our students, who make being here every day worthwhile. To close, I'd like to go back to Wednesday. When we had all of our students here on Wednesday, and they're thinking deeply about thinking, they're discussing it, they're writing about it, they're connecting it to their own lives, and their sort of persona as learners. What we're really doing is teaching them to make meaning, and they're constructing a narrative about themselves, about others, and about the world. And when we talk about skills, dispositions, and knowledge, they're really all in the service of helping young people construct this narrative. And as Jim referred to, really as much as we can, have them get to know themselves before they leave here. The story of who they are, who they'd like to be, and how they're going to become that person. And I would ask you rhetorically, what is more important than that? And if we all could have left, 12th grade with a much more nuanced and deep understanding of, who we are, what that means, who we want to be, and where we want to go, I think we probably all would have appreciated that. So I've been teaching a long time. I taught swimming when I was in college. I taught my soldiers when I was in the Army. I taught college students how to write and to think a little, although in retrospect, I'd have to learn a lot to teach, and I'm trying to do that too myself. I taught high school English. I taught football to kids from severely impoverished backgrounds. I've been teaching teachers and other administrators and parents since 2001. I've taught school superintendents and assistant superintendents and directors. I've always been a learner. And throughout all those years and all that teaching and learning, I really haven't been as proud or excited about school or being part of a community of learners as I was on Wednesday. I'm a little emotional about that. That's the state of our school, right? It's far from perfect. We have a lot of work to do, but we're in a good place. We're doing really well. We're learning together. We're engaged. We're excited. This is about emotions, right? This is why they're so important. We're happy. And so are the kids that are here. And so are the teachers that are here. And that's a really good thing. So thank you all for your time and attention. Jim and I will be here to answer questions. And thanks again to the PA for sponsoring us. And I hope you all have a great day. Thank you.